So in the context of these three steps of motor learning and skill acquisition, and then also transfer of training, we have the first step is exposing the activity or the drill at hand. So to use any activity, really, using myself as an example, understanding what it means to use the pelvic floor within the context of intra-abdominal pressure, that's one thing that I was lacking for myself, and I started to have a little bit of back pain as a cause of this. So I needed to become exposed to this context, right? It's not just simply breathing, but it's understanding how to maintain intra-abdominal pressure, not just from the thoracic diaphragm, but also the pelvic diaphragm, pelvic floor. So that was used in a supine drill, and it was in a blocked format, and I just practiced it, and I practiced it, and I kept on practicing it. The next step in that, the context of learning and skill acquisition, is engaging. Meaning, if I was going to be coaching an individual with this specific activity, I would use that idea and context of that pressure throughout the 360 circumference of the torso and core area. I would use that context within any activity, right? I would say, okay, not just supine position, but can we go into other positions and maintain this torso position? Can we maintain this torso activity within the context of thoracic diaphragm and pelvic floor? Because it's not just a function that we use in only a singular position, such as supine or on our back, but we can use this in the context of many different positions as we go through the context of developmental kinesiology. And then the next aspect here is exploring. So the next aspect here is exploring. So if we can explore this activity, again, we can explore it in many different positions, yes, but what I'm referring to is, can we explore it in an autonomous fashion? Can we explore this activity in reaction to something, right? We might be doing a med ball throw, for example. So while throwing a med ball is not reactionary, if I throw a med ball to an individual and then they have to immediately propel it back to me, right? They have to absorb the force and then repel it or accelerate it back towards me. That might be the activity that we need to explore. And we might need to, we might mark off a distance. So if we are looking to improve horizontal push in terms of upper body strength and power, I might casually toss a ball to them, and then I want to see how far they can throw. So it could be kind of surmised that if an individual has better core stability and intra-abdominal pressure, not just from the thoracic diaphragm again, but also the pelvic floor, perhaps they can produce more force through their upper body, and which is linked through their standing position, through the floor and the ground, so they can have this ground reaction force that they can use to have equal and opposite force vectors to push and reach a new distance. So that could be an idea for the exploratory side of things, right? And we can apply this three-step model to many different activities. It could be change of direction drills. It could be movement activities such as linear speed. For example, I was talking to a colleague about change of direction drills. Technically, if we do a lateral split squat or a lateral lunge, as many are familiar with, we are technically changing directions, because if we are standing still and then we lunge one way and then we come back, we are changing directions from that initial position. So that is technically a change of direction drill. So that is the exposing part, right? We can do a blocked drill in that fashion. So if we have a blocked movement pattern, we can go from point A, point B, and then come back. So that's change of direction. The second thing we're going to go to is engagement. So meaning, how can we engage, the instructor, the practitioner, how can we engage with the athlete or client with this change of direction drill? So for example, perhaps we can hold the bottom position of that lateral split squat, and then they have to change direction when we clap. So that's a very static movement still. We're not really dynamically moving through it. So perhaps we can go into the next progression from there, and we can do side shuffles while we're going in one direction. We clap, and they have to side shuffle into the other direction. So we can begin to assess where their ability to maintain that center of gravity is as they change direction from left to right or right to left. So that context there of changing directions is still there. While we're not achieving as much hip flexion, such as a lateral split squat, we're still maintaining ground reaction forces going in equal and opposite directions. So we're still maintaining those force vectors. So again, we're engaging based off of a cue that we are identifying with via an external source. So it could be engaging via visual as well, not just auditory. So if I have flags or a band or something I wave in the air, they might be moving forwards, in this case linearly or sagittally, maybe jogging forward 5 yards, and then based on which flag that I use, maybe the left or right flag, whichever one I happen to use, I have maybe the flags behind my back, for example. They have to visually be aware of what flag I'm going to use, and then they have to engage based on which direction I use or which hand I use. That's the direction they're going to change directions. So those things combined maybe will begin to identify how we can identify change direction drills in a more reactionary way, right? Because we're trying to improve upon not just blocked drills, we're trying to understand how we can engage the individual, not even in a random drill, but more reactionary and subconscious fashion. And then the exploratory side of things, we might be reacting, with another athlete in terms of competition-like movements, right? We might be moving together in that same 5 yard distance, and then based off of the attacker, we might have to change directions based off of where the attacker individual is going. So those are all different ways we can begin to implement very simplistic drills, and we can begin to stack different drills of change of direction. And that's another example that we can begin to use for those 3-step process of expose the activity, and then we can begin to engage with that activity, and then we can begin to explore that activity. All right. So you can begin to expose the activity based off of a technical skill set, right? Such as maintaining intra-abdominal pressure. It could even refer to range of motion, because if an individual does not acquire or have a specific range of motion, perhaps, going to a specific therapeutic model may be beneficial, right? They might need to acquire more range of motion. So if they don't have a certain amount of range of motion, they need to be exposed to it. Right? They might need to, have some type of joint mobility or other activity performed in order to acquire this new range of motion. They might have had previous, but something happened. They had an injury of some sort, and then they're re-exposed to this new range of motion that they now have. But that doesn't mean you're in the clear. So you need to engage with that activity, this new range of motion, and then you need to explore that range of motion. So now perhaps you can begin to do much different activities in a subconscious and maybe even reactionary perspective to properly get the tissue adaptation for whatever you're doing in terms of range of motion. So those are all different activities that you can do, just thinking in the context of these 3-step model here.